hides it from our youth. Assange and Manning tell the truth. Twitter hides it from our youth. Assange and Manning tell the truth. Twitter hides it from our youth.
Local support group for Assange and Wikileaks. Why is Twitter
being killed? Journalists are under threat for telling the truth. In San Francisco, you had Brian Carmody, who was basically attacked by the police on a fabricated charge. They had committed a crime. They broke into his apartment. They broke into his office illegally. There's a California Shield Act, which it's illegal to enter a journalist home. But they did that, and there's been no prosecution. So this issue of journalist rights, free speech, and whistleblowers is an international issue, and it's an issue in San Francisco.
Assange and Manning tell the truth, but Twitter hides it from our youth. Assange and Manning tell the truth, but Twitter hides it from our youth.
Yeah, long live Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. I think we all need to thank them for their work in revealing information which should be available. The public has the right to know what its government, what its military is up to, and for that I have deep gratitude for these two individuals, Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. Both of them are locked up. Both of them, unless public pressure gets strong enough, may spend a lot more of their lives in prison. They have already spent, well, Julian Assange, what was it, 7 years under house arrest in the Ecuador embassy, where he's now in a prison in England, in the UK. And Chelsea Manning refusing to speak to the grand jury and is also locked up after spending a few years in prison. So I'm here to support these two people, and I'm here to support anybody who's organizing to get them free. And so when I hear that people who have a Twitter account or a website and they're not being allowed to express themselves, it makes me furious. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here in front of the Twitter headquarters. I guess this is the Twitter headquarters. Here we are in San Francisco. Must be the Twitter headquarters. I know they're not paying their taxes. And
they get subsidies.
Yeah, right. So I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm angry at what's going on, and that's why I'm here, because people need to know when their government and their military that we are committing atrocities like what Chelsea Manning revealed about the helicopters in Iraq, the pilots and the crew laughing when they killed 16 or was it 18 civilians. We need to know about that. We need to know how the actions that are being taken in our name and with our tax money. So that's the reason I'm here.
Spread the truth, as you should. Twitter, you're no good. Spread the truth, as you should.
We are protesting Twitter's blocking, that is censoring of various feeds, various microblogging feeds that have been in support of WikiLeaks and Assange. Recently, a feed by Class Conscious has been blocked, and we have a statement from them. They are located in Australia. Here is a statement. Thank you so much to the Bay Area Committee to free Julian Assange and everyone who has attended this rally for this fantastic solidarity. I'm going to wait a minute until noise goes by. You are demonstrating the way to fight Twitter and online censorship. An injury to one is an injury to all. Only through organizing can we push back against ever increasing censorship of not just the Assange campaign, but our freedom of speech more generally. We can't defend Assange and Manning if we lose our own freedom of speech. As Julian languishes in Belmarsh prison, The U.S. government and other governments conspiring to prosecute him are well aware of the growing support for him around the world. It is in this context that moves are being made to sabotage the growth of this global movement. On June 18th, the Twitter accounts classconscious.org, which is at classconscious1, the digit 1, was suspended without warning or justification. The suspension of classconscious.org Twitter account came hours after it tweeted out numerous links to its article covering the global solidarity protests occurring between the 12th and 14th of June, called out by classconscious.org to coincide with Assange's most recent extradition hearing in London. The photo in these tweets shows the unprovoked violent police arrest of 2 peaceful Assange demonstrators at Melbourne June 14th protest outside the UK consulate. This intensified repression of the Assange Manning campaign in real life is being mirrored online. ClassConscious.org, after appealing their suspension, was informed they'd repeatedly broken Twitter's rules, but were not told which rules were broken, and no specific tweets were referred to. This is a complete abrogation of due process. Philip Adams is yet to receive any communications from Twitter justifying his suspension. Subsequent to these suspensions, other incidents of Twitter censorship include the suppressing of the sharing of tweets promoting the hashtag Candles for Assange international actions to mark Julian Assange's 48th birthday on July 3rd. Facebook also recently suppressed an advertisement for a public meeting of the PES, which is a Socialist Equality Party in France. Other pro-Assange accounts report their follower listings being purged by Twitter. A line must therefore be drawn in the sand. We cannot allow pro-Assange Twitter accounts to be picked off a few at a time. The banning of the classconscious.org is a part of an escalating purge of pro-Assange accounts by Twitter. Then it poses an existential threat to this international campaign. It is not hard to imagine, if these suspensions are allowed to stand, that in the future, crucial months of the battle to save lives of Assange and Manning, more will soon follow. The targeted censorship will inevitably ensnare higher profile accounts, even at Wikileaks itself. So much of the international campaign to free Assange and Manning is organized online and via social media, and therefore crucial to the task of building the global protests that will be necessary to free them both. However, the close cooperation, indeed the integration of the corporate social media giants, Facebook, Google, and Twitter, with the U.S. military intelligence complex, poses a direct threat to the efforts to free Assange and Manning, and to free speech in general. Free speech is needed to win this free speech campaign. We cannot allow such censorship to become the new normal. It must be politically confronted at every turn and exposed. Solidarity must be shown to all targets of this censorship by the broader campaign defending Assange. Thank you once again for your principled stand and recognition of the serious political issues raised by censorship of classconscious.org and other pro-Assange Twitter accounts. Solidarity, free Assange, free Manning, free press.
The defense of Julian Assange is not just about Julian Assange, it's about all our rights. Why should a site be blocked that is defending Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning? What political basis of it? They have not violated the terms of the agreement. So basically this company, Twitter, is saying that they don't want freedom for Julian Assange. They want to block people organizing for Julian Assange and his freedom, and that is, in our view, outrageous. We think that that is really censorship, and it's an improper blockage, and it has to be stopped. That's why we're hearing today in front of Twitter to let them know that stop blocking Assange sites. Stop the censorship now. Stop the censorship now. Stop the censorship now.
So we're here protesting Twitter having banned various feeds that is censored, various feeds that have been in support of leftist causes and movements. And I'd like to say just a few words about how I think we really need to fight these proprietary, centralized services on the internet. All right? I think that If we don't understand how the internet works, we're not going to know how to fight this. So I don't think it's a surprise that Twitter, after a time, would start censoring various groups. They are, after all, a for-profit company, and they are susceptible to pressure from advertisers. They're susceptible to pressure from governments. So we can expect that this would happen at some point. So how do we fight this? Well, the first question is, what do we want? So what I would want is a free and open internet. Now, that sounds nice, but if we have a service like Twitter and Al-Qaeda starts using it, obviously there's going to be pressure on Twitter in order to start censoring their service. Now, this is where it starts. You have a few groups that can be shut down like this, and ultimately leftists and other controversial groups are going to start being shut down also. All right, this is just part of the process when you have a central target like a corporation like Twitter or Facebook or Google. They are ultimately going to come under pressure, and they are going to acquiesce. So what happens at the end of this process is we get nothing but Paris Hilton or whatever they're throwing us as a kind of pure vanilla bland internet. So the question is, how do we fight this? So in order to know how to fight this, we have to start a little bit with understanding what the internet's all about. I think most people know that this is military technology. And in some ways, I think they're ruining the day that they released this to us. The point of this technology is that if we have a lot of platoons in the field, and these platoons need to communicate to each other, then what's going to happen is in a typical communication scenario, you would have to set up links from one platoon to another, and then to another, and then to a third, until you get from A to B. All right? The problem with that is, if one of these platoons get knocked out, then you're not able to make that link from A to B, and the communications link is shut down. So what Twitter, the internet is basically a routing protocol. It's a way of starting from some platoon A and finding a path when you only know where the local connections are. Finding a path to get to platoon B. All right? That's the internet. So if one of these platoons gets knocked out, the routing protocol will find a way around it. And so we say that the internet is self-healing. All right? So that has wonderful effects. One of the wonderful effects is any two people on the internet can communicate. They don't need a mediator in between. They can communicate. All right? So what happens when we start giving ourselves over to these centralized services is that we're relinquishing our rights to this unmediated communication. All right? So, for example, right now in Europe, there are ISPs that are already only offering connections to big services like Google, like Facebook, like Twitter, like Amazon. All right? So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a service that is kind of like cable TV. I'm going to order Google, and I'm going to order Facebook with that. All right? So that's their objective. They don't like it when we can communicate freely between any two people on the internet. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is to decentralize. All Twitter is a piece of software, all right? And all they have is our willingness to use it. Now, there's very good software out there. We don't need Twitter software, all right? There is software that is developed not by a commercial entity, but developed and not encumbered with patents, but developed with by people who believe in a free and open internet. So if you have the ability, you can download that software, you can install it on your computer. If you don't have that ability, you can depend on some organization, like for example, the San Francisco Greens here have an instance of Mastodon, which is a Twitter-like free software on a server, and you can join that server. Now, the wonderful thing about that system, and Mastodon is just one of a whole ecosystem, the wonderful thing about that system is they can then federate. So the Greens can then federate with, say, Class Consciousness if they installed such a system. And so we'd be able to communicate in a whole ecosystem of servers running this free software. Now, in the meantime, obviously, there is a problem with the fact that everybody has given themselves over to these centralized services. So what we do is we broadcast not only on these free services, but we repeat them on these proprietary services so that we can tell people over there it's time to move. All right, important people are moving over here to these free services. So the real danger to all this is the loss of net neutrality that the FCC has taken away from us. It is now possible for Twitter to pay ISPs and say, connect us really quick. But the SF Greens, their Mastodon instance, slow that down, make that really slow. Or in fact, even stop it altogether. All right, so the real fight here is for net neutrality. And by fighting for net neutrality, we can take down these centralized services like Facebook and Twitter and Google.
The truth, as you should. Twitter, you're no good. Tell the truth as you should. Twitter, you're no good. Spread the truth as you should.